Welcome, everyone, to the September Facilities Committee meeting. We're going to be switching items 1 and 2 around. So first up will be the capital construction update. So,
good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'll start with Clark Patterson Lee to talk about the update, the design update on the Windsor and Korean Tech facility, followed by the Palumbo Group, who will provide an update on the 2 active construction sites, Heritage as well as Valesgate.
Thank you, Mr. Ramjug. And the only other point I'd like to make, if we could, as we're going to be discussing 4 schools, if we can just take a pause after each school. This way, if there's questions regarding that school, we can do that. So,
absolutely.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, can we switch to the next slide? I don't have the ability to change. Okay. So, like Roger said, this is really just an update from last month's Facilities Committee meeting. Some of you were here for that. First off, we're going to start with the review of the design process. We have 2 buildings currently in the design phase, which is New Windsor and CTE. And then we'll move into the construction projects at Heritage and Valesgate. Next slide. You can keep going to the next one. So in terms of design, not a whole lot has changed since last month. We're still working through a VE process, so we've been having weekly meetings really with both buildings. In particular, New Windsor has less of a gap to close, so we're very close there. Right now, the project is at SED. The review is complete, so this is no change from last month. We have recently received information that the project manager has been out for an extended period of time. She assures us in the next couple of weeks she will be looking at it, so we're anticipating approval of that project pretty imminently. So upon that, if you want to go to the next slide. This is just the same rendering that you saw last month, but we had changed some of the brick, changed some of the facade to brick to align more with the neighborhood. Next slide. Lou, did you want to speak to any of the financials? I don't think anything's changed since last month. So as soon as we receive approval from SED and once we have a page turn with the district to make sure all of the loose ends are buttoned up, T's crossed, I's dotted, we will be releasing the project to bid. I think there's another slide with a schedule. There we go. So we're looking at a bid for the fall of this year. So really in the next month or 2. Then we would be awarding contracts in the late winter of this year, so more like a December timeframe, and then that would set us up for a construction start in the spring. Are there any questions on New Windsor before we move on to CTE?
Yep. Any questions on the New Windsor project at all? No?
Okay.
Okay, we're good. Go ahead, please.
Great. So CTE, again, we're working through value engineering. Many of you are aware that we had a gym redesign, so we've reduced that gym footprint pretty significantly. We've gotten to a good place financially. We have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow to do a page turn with the with district administration and Mr. Eitri. So we're just going to do that final page turn with them. We're anticipating that there may be some additional changes. The superintendent will be present for that meeting as well. So we want to get her acclimated to what the plan looks like, why certain decisions were made. So it'll really be her first introduction into the plan. So we may be seeing some further changes. So what we want to do is just get that meeting out of the way. We may have several meetings. This is a very large building. The design set is over 300 sheets, so it's pretty substantial. So we're expecting to have multiple meetings with district administration, and then we'll button those plans up to go to SED. Next slide. Again, we're working through value engineering. We don't have any updates just yet. We're kind of waiting to see what the full scope of any changes that the superintendent might want to make or might suggest to make. So we haven't gone back through an estimating process, so nothing has changed. Correct me if I'm wrong, nothing has changed since last month from the financials.
You have to come to
You
the
want to come
microphone,
up here
sir.
and talk into the mic?
I think what's important about this slide, it does show the $6.6 million worth of work associated to the reduction of square footage of the gym. That's where the big savings comes first. We are working on more savings on top of that. You know, we're 500 grand off the mark, and I think we have a lot of, you know, good savings that we can, you know, continue to work on. But the big number here is the reduction of close to 20,000 square feet.
Okay, do you want to go to the next slide? So we're anticipating right now to finish up design towards the end of this year. This is without knowing what the results of our meetings are going to be, so it's a little bit speculative at this point. But if we can keep to that winter schedule, we'll submit to SED. We'd like to have a face-to-face review with SED. We think that will be the most economic and efficient way to go about getting this project reviewed. Like I said, it's 300 some odd pages of drawings to go through. It's really a lot to digest. So sitting at the table with the reviewer would be very helpful. So this would be a bid just after New Windsor, if all goes well per our schedule. We'd be looking at more of a early summer of next year to start construction.
Laura, can we just go back to one slide?
Sure.
To the budget slide. I think what's important here to note, these are numbers that were budgeted. When you look at CTE site phase 1, you'll see that we had allocated $2.258 million for site work and another $383,000 for contingencies. We actually brought that phase of work in at 1.9. So that savings is not really shown here. So the 496, I'm trying to reflect how we budgeted and how we're moving ahead, but we've already had savings from phase 1.
So you're saying that phases that are completed, that now you can have an exact figure, it's not a guess anymore, and it came in...
I haven't changed that, because for me, what's important here is to say that we had 70 million allocated per the original estimate. And that's, I think it can get confusing if I go back and forth, so I'm just showing what we projected way back when. But what is important on CTE site phase 1, we brought that project in at 1.9 million.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that is the update for CTE. So are there any further questions?
Any questions? Mr. Stridani?
So the site plan itself for CT, parking, building layout, has that changed at all since a few months ago?
A little bit. So as we're going through our VE process, parking has been one of those subjects that we've been going over. So we've already eliminated some parking to add to the green space. We're now evaluating whether the amount of parking on the site is, is needed. So we know a lot of the students are coming from NFA Main, so they may not be parking up above. So it's really, the students from North are being bussed in. So it's not so much the students, it's more the public and the staff. So the district is right now evaluating what is absolutely needed for that site. So it's still under design, but it has already been reduced.
Because you had the event space.
Yes.
So now, I don't know how many parking spaces you calculated for that. The less parking that you put in now, we could always expand it later if we really needed it. Because if you have a huge parking lot, you got to plow the whole thing, and every time it snows, you have to maintain it, and you have to reseal it. So that might be a cost savings there for,
Yes, actually,
2
I think
years.
it was actually your comment in a board meeting. I think that sort of stirred everybody's mind, like, well, we did reduce that space. So right now, we have a 90 space lot allocated to that end of the building. Is 90 spaces really what we need for that? So that's under evaluation as we speak.
Ms. Maneo?
I don't know if you've had time to address this, but I talked about a covered walkway or some kind of walkway for students, and I know we talked about it just a month or less than a month ago. Has that been brought up in any conversations?
So right now, our focus is to reduce what we can to get the numbers low enough so that we can start talking about introducing something like that into the plans.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Well, I'm sure the superintendent's perspective on that will be important, too, of what direction we should go. The only other question I had, since you're talking about just some changes maybe from original, and you said you're meeting with Mr. Etrie, are any of the room design or subject matters that are being taught to that point change at all, or no?
We've been focusing mostly on peripheral. We don't want to focus on the program. We definitely don't want to take away from the program. So what we're looking at are spaces that, for instance, there's a more grand stair in the middle of the building. One of the items is to take that out of the scope. That was significant savings. That doesn't necessarily affect a program that's happening in the building. This was just sort of bonus space for the students. So we're being very cognizant to not affect the program spaces.
Okay. Very good. All right, so let's move on to the next building, please.
So that's it for design. I'm going to pass it to Bill. He's going to talk about the construction projects. But I appreciate the rearrangement of the agenda tonight. I do have to
Thank you.
leave, so I hope you have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. First up, we'll talk about Heritage. Currently, Heritage is on schedule and still anticipated to complete the summer of 2023. The contract values as of now have not changed. Go to the next slide, please. Right now, a little schedule overview. Mechanical contractor right now is inside the building. We've drained down a portion of that heating system to do some pre-installation of isolation valves so that come throughout the year we can go on a night shift and do some work during the heating season and not have to affect the heating system inside the building. Currently, we do have an electrical contractor working nights. We have about 6 people inside the building running conduit and feeders down the hallways to get to the gym and a couple other spaces. Outside the building, all the underground utilities have been rerouted. The new addition foundation and excavation is complete, and new footings are in progress. CP on the district are reviewing and approving all mechanical submittals. So we had a very large mechanical submission for this project, and we had an or equal submitted from the contractor. So we did sit down with the district. We brought in the engineers. We brought in had some manufacturer feedback, sat down, went through all of the controls, what they do compared to what was designed, compared to what is in the existing building, just to assure that the functionality and everything is what fits the district best. So that submittal was approved. That was probably one of the biggest ones and longest lead items that we have out there. And currently, we don't have any outstanding RFI or no safety issues that we're aware of. So, next slide, please. So I left a logistics plan up here that we discussed last time. We have implemented everything that you see up here. We've installed signs directing the contractors where to go so that every day when they get there in the morning and the afternoon, they're following the correct path. They're not getting intertwined with buses or students or going the wrong direction. And everything right now has been very successful. All the contractors are following the rules. We're parking inside the contractor area, which is that red fence we discussed last time, and keeping ourselves contained in that area. So next slide, please. This is a view looking north. To the left there is the cafeteria. Right in front of you where you see that excavator, right behind that is where the new addition is going. Just to kind of give you a look of what it looks like inside of that contractor area. Next slide, please. This is inside the building. Like we discussed, this is what the conduit looks like that they're currently running through the hallways. This is an example of how big the feeders are that they're running in here, and that right there is what we call a pull box. That's where they do their splices, and then they're able to pull and then continue the runs throughout the rest of the pipe. So the runs in the building are quite significant. If you can picture the length of the building, that's about the length of all the runs that we're running from one side to the other. Next slide, please. So we met with the fire marshal just to kind of give them an idea of what we've done, what we've modified around the school. One of the suggestions from the fire marshal was to widen the temporary road to 20 feet so a ladder truck can get in there. So I wanted to show you guys a picture of what it looks like. I'm standing at the gate of the construction area looking back. This will stay there. I know Roger spoke about this many times, that we could leave this after construction and allow the fire trucks to actually go around the building and circulate the entire thing without having to turn around. Next slide, please. Financially, this is an update on current change order status and allowance disbursements. To date, we've had 0 change orders awarded and 0 allowances awarded at Heritage. So, next slide, please. Any questions on Heritage before we move to Vales Gate?
Any questions, guys, on Heritage? No? Andy, do you have?
Yeah, Bill, on the signage, coming up the road, I know that you guys put some sign after you get to the turn to the school. Once we start the heavy construction outside, I think we got to put signage further down, big signs, so the contractors know that when they get to the top, they got to turn right. And I'm going to suggest that we make them a little bigger and in metal, because in the winter, the one we have, they're going to get destroyed. We got to do something with the signage going up so that the contractors know where to go.
Sounds good.
Because sometime in the morning you have a lot of traffic there, and I don't want a contractor to turn the wrong way.
Okay, you got it. Maybe you and I can sit down and we'll go over the map and put together something that'll.
Okay.
Ms. Mineo, do you have any questions on Heritage at all? No, thank you. Okay. So just one question I have. The picture that you have there, that was the ceiling that you're running conduit and stuff through, is that student-occupied areas that are worked on at night, or is it a closed-off section that is being worked on?
So this is all at night. So far, we haven't had any student interaction in that school. I've been there myself, so I can tell you that. So they're having it. It's an unoccupied building as far as we're concerned. We start about 3 o'clock. We enter the building, and we'll work until about 10:30 at night.
Okay, very good. Okay, no other questions? We'll go on to Vales Gate, please.
So Vales Gate, same thing. It's on schedule. Still anticipated to complete the summer of 2023. And the contracts are as follows. Nothing's changed since last time. Next slide, please. The schedule status. So we were very successful. We really planned to get the demolition of the modulars down before the kids come back to school. It was one of our main goals. That way we can control dust. We can control any kind of questions that may come out or worries or concerns. We were very successful. We got the building down. We used means of water to control that dust while we were doing it, and that was pretty satisfactory. So the demolition of the old radio tower is also complete. I have a picture of the crane that we brought in to take it down. That was a very exciting day for everybody. The interior temp walls and egress are complete and functional. We did reroute all of the emergency lighting, including the 2 blue lights for the lockdown lights that were on the exterior of the building. There was one that was inside the new vestibule, we relocated inside the cafeteria, and then the one that was connected to the modular, we moved to the new exterior door so that it's visible from the main street. The heating and plumbing to the old modulars, everything's been disconnected and capped and safed. Excavation for footings is ongoing along with formwork and rebar. We're anticipating pouring concrete this week. I believe because of the rain that we had the other day, set us back a day. We will see concrete being poured next week for the first time. Contractors are compliant with SED, noise regulations, and not disrupting school activities at this time. Next slide, please. Again, I wanted to just continue showing the logistics. I think it's important to, keep this in mind and really see where we are, and that everything that we put on plan, and we've worked together with the district internally and externally, putting our minds together. It's really functional. It's really been working. Again, no interaction with the students or parents. Everybody's safe. Everybody's behind closed doors. So it just, everything's worked out with the logistics plan, and everything's in place at this time. Next slide, please. So here's a picture of us starting the demo of the modulars. Took about a week to do so, a lot of containers. Next slide, please. So here's a picture of the crane. I'm not sure if many of you knew that there was an old cell tower that was back there. It was probably about 90 to 100 feet tall, and it sat on a very big footing. That footing was about 6 feet deep and about 6 feet wide in each direction. The engineering that went into that was quite amazing. But had a very successful takedown on that tower, very safe, and it's now gone. Next slide, please. So here we see the installation of the formwork for the footings, to give you an idea of kind of what the excavation looks like, the gravel that we put in, and then the formwork for the footings. Next slide, please. Current budget status for this project. We've had 2 change orders, one as a credit of $609. I'm sorry, 1 change order and a credit of $609. We did have 2 approved allowance disbursements right now, one for the general contractor at $9,605 and one to the site contractor at $4,180. Next slide, please.
Well, let's take a little pause, and if anyone has any questions on Vales Gate before we get into general. Ms. Mineo?
Because taking down the the modulars was such a big thing, how was the air quality for the students and staff in the building and for the community surrounding? How bad was it?
It was not bad at all. So we have plenty of pictures, plenty of videos. We actually brought in a tanker truck, almost like a fire truck that you can imagine with a big spray nozzle, big 2-inch water nozzle. We couldn't connect to the hydrants, so we used the truck, exactly like a fire truck, if I could best explain it. And there was a man there. So what happens is every time the machine would stop, they would spray the material. You can't really spray it while the machines are working. It would be kind of unsafe. Imagine driving in a typhoon, right? So we couldn't have the water spraying all the time. So every time we would see a little puff of dust, we would stop, wet everything down, and then continue to work. So in my opinion, I think we understood it was very, very important. It's very, very important to us as well as the public and the district. So we took that very seriously, and in my opinion, had 0 issues.
If I could just add to that really quickly, I do want to highlight that most of that work was done after the summer program and concluded and before staff returned, so we didn't have high occupancy in the building at that time.
Thank you. Mr. Strudine?
So on the total proposal submitted, can you explain what that exactly means when a proposal is submitted by a contractor?
Sure. Can we go back to the last slide, please? So total proposal submitted is if a contractor feels that he's deserving of a change order or change proposal, we call them, that we keep track of the amount of what that proposal is. What TPG and CPL do is we sit down and we go through that change proposal. We determine whether it's justified or not. So as you can see, we go through and we will either reject them. So we have another log that shows all the rejected proposals that were made. So it starts off as a proposal submitted to us by the contractor, but it doesn't necessarily mean it ends up that way. So we might go through that and we might say it's justified or not justified, or we feel that the price is too high and negotiate that price lower and then make a recommendation to the district.
Do they submit the proposals before they do the work?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not going to get into a situation where they've done the work and then they feel as if they're not getting paid for something that was a change order?
Correct.
Okay.
However, we do have, to be very transparent, we do have in case of an emergency. For an example, I hate to bring up the word asbestos. Everybody hates that. But if we're in the middle of doing work and it's very time-sensitive work and we find something, I would call the district directly. I would tell them it's an emergency. We would negotiate there right on the spot. Somebody from the district would come down, Roger or Andy or even Kimberly. We would assess the situation quickly and determine whether it is an emergency and make a decision to move forward from there. Sometimes that happens. It's very rarely, but it does happen sometimes.
And what percentage of the site work is complete at this point? Because And the total budget for site work was 971,000, but 56,000 in proposals were submitted. It seems early on in the process, it seems like a high number.
So right, and that's what's out there right now, and I can tell you right now, it's not going to be that. Again, what one contractor feels like his proposal should be, and what it's justified after we review it is another thing. The site work that we've done so far is actually pretty minimal. I have to admit, I mean, most of his site work is redoing the parking lot, which is next year. But this has to do with the temporary parking lot. We did build the temporary parking lot, which was a pretty high dollar number, and a few modifications that we've had to do down the way. So he's installed all the underground utilities so far for the electrician and for himself, and the temporary parking lot. You're welcome.
So just to build on to what you said about an emergency situation which occurs, there is a maximum limit, correct, before it would have to come before the board itself?
That is correct.
A financial limit for that?
That is correct, yep. Yeah, we don't, if it's under that threshold or over that threshold, it has to go in front of the board.
Do you know what that threshold is?
I believe it's $10,000, I believe.
15,000? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, no more questions on Vales Gate. We can go to the safety and other factors, construction work.
So it's something we reiterate not only to this board every time we meet, but it's something we talk about in our weekly job meetings with the contractors, and really every day when we do toolbox talks. Safety is our #1 priority. So I just want to remind everybody that students and staff are, safety is our first priority. COVID protocols are in place. We do abide by the Raptor system. We have a direct email to your security director. We send the information to him. He emails us back. We keep a running list of who's who on the job site, as well as everybody having a sticker on their hard hat. So it kind of allows us to identify that person has a sticker. We can know he went through that Raptor system. If he doesn't have a sticker, and he somehow is on that job site, we can stop him and check the list. But everybody that goes through signs in every morning. We do monitor everybody that enters the job site. Workers and students and staff are separated by the hard barriers that you see in the pictures, the fence with the mesh. So not only is it a visual barrier, but a noise barrier as well. All contractors are required to wear company ID badges, along with the sticker I mentioned on the hard hat. Any inconveniences of staff and surrounding neighbors, we take that seriously, and we do try to keep it to a minimum. There are some noises out there. We are in constant contact with the district and or the principals to make sure on a daily basis that everything's fine and anything we can make, any adjustments we can make. Construction manager has full-time supervision, so we have 2 supers. There's actually 3 of us that we rotate every once in a while on both job sites, including night work. That we do have staffed full-time every day. And all communication with the contractors are through the construction manager, so we don't allow any of the contractors to speak directly with any parents, any school facility, personnel, principals, things like that. All communication has to go through us to the district. Next slide, please. All right, any questions beyond that?
Any general questions does anyone have? So, no, we're good. Oh, okay, so just a question and a comment, Ms. Roaring. I was wondering if there's a point where there's inconvenience to like the surrounding people, if you're aware of that and it's something that can't be fixed, if you could let this committee know if there's, something out there that is either not reasonable to be fixed or can't be fixed or for whatever reason.
We can certainly do that. It is expected that Mr. Ramjug is that key point of contact, but we will certainly report back. If we have a situation that it causes significant inconvenience to the neighbors, which I've had in previous projects that we just can't fix, it's my personal protocol that we try and get in front of that. So we're communicating directly with them to let them know what's coming and what that might be like in the duration of that, so that they also know in advance and they're not complaining after the fact because they didn't know.
Yeah, okay. So thank you to the Palumbo Group and Ms. Roy and Mr. Ramchuk for this report, and we will see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going back to 1.01 with Mr. Velez and his summer projects that were completed.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. At last month's meeting, I presented the list of all the projects that we completed over the summer, and I promise you all that all the work that we're going to do over the next 2 weeks was going to be added here, so I added in the same list, and I put it bold, so you can see each building what we did after the last 2 weeks. So basically, the list is the same, plus 16 other projects that we completed in the schools.
So any questions on specific, Mr. Stradine?
So the replacement of all the unit ventilator filters, they were MERV 13. Are they still MERV 13 filters?
Yes, in all the schools, including Sacred Heart.
And we're going to continue to have MERV 13 filters? I know there was
I
talk
have
about
nurture
changing
things
it.
for 2 more changes. After that, I have to talk to Ms. Roaring to see if we're going to continue because of the cost. It's $37,000 each time.
How often do they change them?
Before COVID, we were doing it twice a year. We're doing it 4 times now. We did it the last week of August. We're going to do it sometime in November, January, and in the spring.
And that's using the money from the American, was it the CARES Act money?
With the federal funds, we acquired enough filters, like I said, for 2 more changes. Going forward, I don't know if you're going to go that way. I will talk to Ms. Roaring.
Just to clarify, the CARES funds have expired this month. We do not have any more expense in CARES.
We can go back to a lower MERV. I know that, I think we and another district in Orange County are the only 2 using MERV 13 now. And because we had the extra money at the end of the last school year, we bought 3 changes. But I will be talking to Ms. Roaring later in the fall or early winter because we're going to have 1 more change before the school year is out. And also, Darren, Mr. Trident, we put the dates on the filters. So if one day we open, we know what day was changed. And also in most of the buildings, I'll go myself or Mr. Chenoweth, we open a few here or there because depending on the usage, like I'll give you a good example, NFA is working 16 hours a day. We might change those a little early. I also have a company that I met with last week that is proposing a new filter that it will last for 6 to 8 months. And what I suggest to them was that I want to get some of those filters and put them in some rooms and the ones that we have. And then I wanted to take it to an independent lab to evaluate to see if they're as good as they say they are. Yes.
And Mr. Velez, just any idea of the step-down filter, what kind of savings? Is it a substantial savings or no?
About $10,000. If we go to a MERV 8, about $6,000 if we go to a MERV 11.
Okay. All right. And so, what? I'm sorry, Ms. Mineo?
Mr. Velez, I want to compliment your staff. The buildings looked fabulous on the walkthroughs. The floors gleamed. The bathrooms were absolutely fabulous. I mean, they did an above and beyond job. It was really, they did a West Street, the painting in West Street, Meadow Hill
Meadow and
primary
Temple.
play.
Yeah. Meadow and Temple.
The gym, yeah.
They changed the floor in Meadow Hill. It looks like a whole new room. I mean, it's fabulous. It really looks good. So thank you to you and your staff, please.
Over in Temple Hill School, the whole gym was done, and then there's an exit that go to the kindergarten hallway that was done. At Meadow Hill, the wood, there was a problem getting some of the wood, so there's a small area, 20 by 16. They're going to do next weekend. We have 4-day weekend. They're going to come and complete that. And then around the floor in the entire gym, we had to put a metal bracket, L-shape, to isolate the expansion joint. We don't have those yet. We ordered them in February. So there's a little gap there, but the kids don't go in that area. I have talked to both principals and the teachers in those rooms. So as soon as we get that, they're going to install that.
Yeah, the buildings, like Ms. Mineo says, inside and outside were fabulous looking when it opened up, so that was great. Okay, anybody have any other comments or questions? Mr. Doré, go ahead.
The $10,000 in savings, was that per change, per year?
For the metal filters?
Yeah.
For the filters, if it's per change, if we buy them, because like I said, it's $38,000 per change now. If I go to a MERV 8, it will be about $26,000, $27,000.
Okay. No more questions, and that'll be it for this month, and we'll see you all next month. Thank you very much.